On a freezing winter night, a little girl sat shivering, alone in the snow, clutching a worn-out doll and whispering words no child should ever have to say, "Please take me home." Hundreds of people passed by, but no one stopped until one man did. He was a millionaire CEO, the kind of man who lived by rules of power, profit, and distance. But in that moment, those rules shattered. What began as a chance encounter would turn into a story of love, redemption, and the discovery that family isn't always about blood. It's about who shows up when you need them most. This is not just a tale of survival, but of transformation, and of how a single choice can change two lives forever. Stay with us, and if you believe in stories that heal hearts and inspire hope, subscribe to the Retold Stories today. Snow had a way of silencing the city, wrapping everything in a muffled stillness that felt at once serene and lonely. That evening, Chicago lay under a heavy blanket of white, the flakes tumbling steadily through the air, as if determined to hide the hardness of steel towers and the emptiness of abandoned benches. Ethan Cole sat alone in Grant Park, a man who seemed to belong to the cold more than to the warmth of life. His navy overcoat was tailored to perfection. His gloved hands curled around a paper cup that no longer gave off heat. The coffee inside had gone cold long ago, but he had not noticed. Truthfully, he did not need it. Warmth had been a stranger to him for years. His phone buzzed once with a message from his assistant, reminding him of an investor dinner at an exclusive restaurant. The car was waiting. His presence was expected, but his thumb hesitated over the reply before letting the screen go dark again. He was not going. Tonight, he wanted silence. He wanted the ghosts. When he opened the photo gallery on his phone, there she was, Sophia. A woman with snow caught in her hair, her laugh frozen in pixels that still carried weight. It was an old picture, blurry, taken on a cheap phone back when he was just a college kid with big dreams and not enough courage. Her name was still a wound. He had traded her for ambition, convincing himself that success would fill the absence. Yet the further he had climbed, the emptier the air became. Her number was gone, but the ache remained. A sharp sound broke through the quiet, pulling him from memory. At first, it seemed like the cry of the wind, but then it came again, smaller, thinner, fragile in its desperation. He rose from the bench, shoes crunching through fresh snow, and followed the sound. Beneath a leafless tree, he saw her. A little girl, no more than 7, was curled into herself. Her coat was thin, a sleeve torn open at the seam, her shoes soaked through. A doll, worn and missing one shoe, was clutched to her chest as though it were her last shield against the cold. She rocked gently, as if rhythm could substitute for warmth. Her face was half hidden, but her eyes, when they lifted to meet his, were dark pools of fear and exhaustion. "Please," she whispered, her voice almost swallowed by the winter air. "Please take me home, sir." The words hit him like a punch. He crouched down, his breath clouding in the space between them. "Where are your parents?" he asked softly, scanning the park. Empty benches, empty paths, only snow and silence. She licked her chapped lips before speaking again. "Mom's in the sky now." A pause, heavy and unflinching. "And I can't go back. He'll hurt me." Ethan's chest tightened. "Who's he?"
My mother had
"My
told
stepdad,"
me about you.
she murmured, her small shoulders trembling, though her voice carried no drama, just resignation. Something inside him shifted. He had negotiated billion-dollar contracts, faced down ruthless competitors, but nothing had ever stripped him bare like the quiet truth spoken by this child. He removed his gloves and took her small hands into his own. They were ice cold, stiff, almost lifeless. "What's your name?" he asked. "Lily. Lily Morgan."
My mom wore it until
"Lily,"
she died.
he repeated, his voice rougher than he intended. "You don't have to stay here. I'll help you." She blinked slowly, exhaustion weighing heavier than fear. He pulled off his coat and wrapped it around her small body. It swallowed her, but she did not protest, only leaned against the fabric like a weary bird finding shelter. When he lifted her gently into his arms, her sleeve slipped back, and he saw them, the bruises, dark and shaped like fingers. His jaw clenched. As he carried her through the park, her tiny voice rose again, almost trembling. "Are you a bad man too?" His steps faltered. For the first time in years, his heart cracked open wider than he thought possible. No,
Oh my
he whispered.
goodness.
No, I'm not. Inside a small diner nearby, the heat stung his face as he entered. The booths were worn, the lights buzzing faintly overhead, but it was warm. He slid into a corner booth with Lily nestled beside him, wrapping her carefully in his coat. A waitress brought hot chocolate, and Lily held the mug with both hands, steam curling against her cheeks. She stared into it without drinking, her reflection trembling in the liquid. "Are you warmer now?" Ethan asked. She nodded but kept her eyes down. He noticed the way her tangled hair clung to her damp face, the way she gripped the doll like it was the only thing keeping her steady. Then her soft voice returned. "Thank you for not leaving." The words struck him harder than any boardroom betrayal ever had. He forced his throat to work. "Of course, I'm not going anywhere." Minutes stretched quietly. The waitress brought soup and toast, but Lily touched neither. Then, unexpectedly, she lifted her gaze. "My name's Lily Morgan." He smiled faintly. "That's a beautiful name." "I'm Ethan." Her eyes flickered. "I know." His brow furrowed. "You know who I am?" "My mom told me." The name followed like a whisper. Sophia. The world seemed to tilt. The diner noises faded, replaced by the drum of his own heartbeat. Sophia, the one he had let slip away. The one who had carried his love into the world and left him none the wiser. And now, sitting across from him, was a child with her eyes. Lily reached into her pocket and placed a small silver pendant on the table.
We just want
a
to
heart,
make sure everything
initials
is okay.
etched faintly, S and E. He remembered fastening it around Sophia's neck with trembling hands all those years ago. He had promised he would always come back, but he hadn't. Now here was Lily, proof of a life he never knew he had touched, staring at him with the same gray eyes. She said her mother wore it, until she died.
Yes, hello, this is Sarah.
She said her mother believed in the boy who gave it to her. Ethan's throat burned. He turned toward the window, the snow pressing against the glass like guilt made visible. He thought about calling the authorities, handing Lily over to a system designed for children like her. But then, he saw her reflection beside his, small, broken, silently waiting. And he knew. She needed more than a system. She needed him. He booked a suite under his name in his own hotel. The penthouse would have warmth, food, security. When they arrived, Lily hesitated at the threshold, as if afraid it was all a dream. He handed her a robe, ordered cocoa, tried to make her believe that safety could be real. Later, when she curled into bed, her voice floated across the room like a fragile thread. "Mom said if I ever found the boy who gave her the necklace, I should trust him." The words landed heavy in his chest. He stood at the door, his heart no longer his own. It was not too late for Lily. And perhaps, just perhaps, it was not too late for him either. The suite was warmer than Lily had expected. She stood at the edge of the living room in Ethan's penthouse, her small frame dwarfed by walls of glass and dark wood. The fireplace glowed faintly against the silence,
Here you go.
its flicker soft on her face. She did not move at first, as though stepping into this new world might cause it to vanish. Ethan crouched down, holding out a robe that trailed behind her like a cape when she slipped it on. Her thin shoulders disappeared in its folds, but for the first time since he had found her, her lips were no longer tinged blue. He ordered cocoa, soup, fresh bread. She sipped slowly, eyes lowered, the steam curling across her cheeks. When she finally looked up, the words that fell from her lips were quiet but clear.
That's so silly.
"You are not mad?" she asked.
Good
He shook his
night,
head.
my sweet
"No,
Lily.
Lily. I am not mad. I am sorry you had to find me like this." That night, she slept
You
in the
are
wide
not
bed
like
beneath
him.
heavy blankets, the doll tucked close to her chest. Ethan stood in the doorway longer than he had ever lingered near another soul, watching her breathing even out.
I won't leave you.
Her face softening with sleep.
Promise.
Something inside him, something long frozen, stirred. Morning light slipped through the curtains, like a hesitant visitor. Ethan sat awake on the couch, still in yesterday's clothes, coffee untouched in his hands. When Lily padded barefoot across the hardwood, wrapped in the robe, She asked in a voice so small it nearly broke him. "Do I have to leave today?" His answer was steady. "No,
Get your
Lily.
hands off me!
You stay here as long as you need." It was the first time she seemed to believe in permanence. She nodded, though her
Lily
eyes still
is my
carried shadows.
daughter!
Later, she told him about a nightmare she had. One, different from the others. "You were there," she whispered. "You stopped him from coming in." The words gutted him.
Lily,
He
what
made
happened?
calls he had never expected to make. A private physician arrived, discreet and gentle, to examine
It is
Lily.
going to be all right.
Doctor Harding asked her soft questions, rolled up her sleeve carefully, and Ethan's heart clenched when he heard the child flinch. The doctor's verdict was calm but grim.
Oh, thank you.
Multiple bruises, some new,
no,
some
thank
fading,
you.
signs of prolonged distress, a body far too thin for her age. She asked if Child Protective Services had been contacted. Ethan shook his head. He did not want Lily lost in a system that might shuffle her from one cold bed to another. "Then move fast," the doctor advised. "If the man who hurt her finds her first, he will try to take her back." The words chilled him more than the snow outside ever could. Ethan called lawyers, investigators, counselors. His world had once revolved around contracts and deadlines, but now urgency had a new face, a small one with tangled hair and frightened eyes. Days passed in a rhythm neither of them had known before. He ordered new clothes for her boots, coats, soft pajamas. He filled the suite with crayons and paper, and Lily began to draw. At first, her pictures were shaky outlines of houses with windows dark and crooked. But soon they grew brighter. A home with a chimney, a girl holding hands with a tall man, and above them, a woman with wings, Sophia, drawn as an angel watching over them. One evening, after coloring at the desk, Lily slipped her drawing onto the coffee table and whispered, "You are the one that makes the house warm."
For this case.
Ethan pressed the picture against his chest, blinking hard against the burn in his eyes. He abandoned his business meetings without hesitation. His assistant called, pleading for him to attend the summit at Arcadia Tower, where his name was on the headline.
Makes me feel
Instead,
at home.
he canceled everything. "Reschedule all of it," he said firmly. For the first time in his career, he placed a child's needs above an empire's. Lily's transformation was slow, but undeniable. A shopping trip brought her a bright purple coat, mittens, and boots that fit snugly. For the first time, she walked through the snow without shivering. When she saw a doll in a shop window, a holiday edition with a crown and a snowflake dress, her eyes locked on it, but she said nothing.
Yes,
Ethan
we
noticed.
did.
Minutes later, it was
We
in her
won.
arms. Her astonishment melted into a smile, pure and unguarded, the first true smile he had seen from her. At a small bistro, she laughed as he clumsily blew bubbles into his soda straw, splashing water on his tie. The sound was sharp and sudden, like a bell rung for the first time after years of silence. "You are bad at being a grown-up," she giggled. He grinned. "Good, because being a grown-up is overrated." That night, as he tucked her into bed, she whispered, "You are not like him. He never stayed. He only yelled, but you are warm." The words sank deep into his chest. He knelt beside her, placed his hand over hers, and whispered back, "No yelling, no leaving, just here." Slowly,
go of me!
her small fingers wrapped around his. Yet shadows of the past still reached for them. A letter arrived, a legal notice from Mark Ridley, her stepfather demanding custody. Ethan tucked it away, heart pounding, and called his lawyer immediately. That evening, while brushing Lily's hair, loud banging rattled the door. Mark stood in the hallway, wild-eyed, shouting that Lily was his. Security intervened, but not before Lily heard. Her scream pierced the air as she ran into Ethan's arms, sobbing into his chest.
It smells
"Please do not let him take me." The hallway froze at her words. Neighbors peered out, and even the guards went silent. She whispered through her tears, "He hurt my mom. He hurt me." Ethan held her tighter, fury and protectiveness crashing inside him. When security finally dragged Mark away, his shouts echoing down the corridor, Ethan carried Lily back into the suite. She clung to him, face buried against his shirt, her sobs shuddering until exhaustion pulled her into sleep. He kissed her hair gently and promised into the silence, "Not if I can help it. Never again." Later, Alone on the balcony, he stared at the snow falling softly over the city. He was no longer the man who chose ambition over love, who hid behind suits and schedules. He was something else. Now a man who had found what truly mattered in the fragile trust of a child who called him safe. He texted his lawyer one sentence: "File for emergency guardianship tomorrow." The reply was immediate. "Already in progress. We will win this." Ethan closed his eyes, the wind biting at his skin. Somewhere in the distance, the city kept moving. Deals kept closing. Fortunes kept rising and falling. But here, in this suite, warmed by a small heartbeat, he had found the only battle worth fighting. The courtroom carried a kind of chill that was different from the snow outside. It was not the cold of winter, but the cold of decisions, of walls painted beige and benches polished by years of weary families waiting for their futures to be decided. Ethan Cole sat stiffly at the table beside his attorney, his hands folded too tightly, his gaze fixed straight ahead. Across the aisle, Mark Ridley leaned back with a smugness that made Ethan's stomach turn. His lawyer looked disinterested, almost bored, but the menace in Mark's eyes was sharp enough to slice through the silence. Lily was not in the room. The judge had ordered her to stay with a counselor in a smaller chamber down the hall. That should have comforted Ethan, but he could not stop glancing at the door as if she might walk in at any moment. He needed her safe, unseen by the man who had left bruises on her arms and shadows in her voice. The attorney laid out their case with precision, the medical report detailing the injuries, the testimony of neighbors who had heard shouting, the video footage from the hotel hallway showing Lily's terror when Mark appeared. Piece by piece, the picture was built. Mark's defense was thin, built on the fact that he had lived with the girl after her mother's death. He claimed he was the only father she had known. He raised his voice when he spoke about money, sneering at Ethan's wealth as if love could be bought or sold. Then the guardian ad litem, Nora Whitman, rose. She had kind eyes, a calm voice, and the quiet authority of someone who had listened more than she had spoken. She presented drawings Lily had made during their meetings. One showed a house with glowing windows, a tall man holding a child's hand, and above them, an angel with curly hair and a star for a face. "She told me this is the home she wants," Nora said softly.
"Do you miss
She told me
being alone?"
the man in the picture makes her feel safe. Her exact words were, "He feels like home." The courtroom hushed. Even the judge, stern and practiced, let her gaze rest on Ethan a beat longer than necessary. She did not speak then, only promised to review everything overnight before rendering her decision. As Ethan walked out of the courthouse, he found Lily sitting with Nora on a bench in the hallway. Her legs swung nervously above the floor. The moment she saw him, her eyes widened. "Did we win?" she asked. Ethan crouched beside her, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Not yet," he said gently.
"I promise.
"But we are
always."
closer." She reached into her backpack and handed him another drawing. It was a house again, but this time the man wore a badge with the letters DAD scrawled across it. Ethan's chest tightened as he folded it carefully. That night, he could not sleep. He stared at the ceiling of his penthouse, the city glowing faintly through the curtains, fear gnawing at him in a way money had never prepared him for. He was not afraid of losing a deal or a reputation.
Love is something you build,
He was afraid of losing her.
brick by brick.
The next morning, the courtroom was
moment
still.
by moment.
Papers shuffled. The judge's voice cut through the silence. "I hereby grant emergency guardianship of Lily Morgan to Mr. Ethan Cole. Full custody will be considered pending review." The words crashed over him like a tide. Relief nearly buckled his knees. Mark leapt up in protest, but the judge silenced him with one look. Lily was his now not just by law, but by something deeper, something undeniable.
Oh my
A week later, Ethan opened the door of a townhouse on the north side of the city. It was brick,
so
warm,
funny.
and modest compared to his penthouse, but it breathed with possibility. He lifted Lily from the car, and she looked at the house with wide eyes. "It smells like cinnamon," she said, her breath puffing in the cold. He smiled. "Maybe the neighbors are baking. You will meet them soon."
You still haven't
Inside,
learned how to
the
cook
living
an
room
egg
glowed
correctly.
with afternoon light. Her drawings already hung on the walls. Upstairs, a room had been painted in
Yeah,
soft
but I
colors
like it.
with glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling. A beanbag chair sat by the window, and a shelf waited for books yet to come.
Goodbye.
On the kitchen counter lay a note in Ethan's handwriting.
See you later.
Welcome home, Lily. She touched it
Hello
with small
there.
fingers.
How are you
Is this
today?
really ours? He knelt. It is yours. And yes, it is real. The days that followed were filled with rituals he never knew he needed. He burned pancakes twice before Lily giggled and taught him to make them her way with blueberries shaped into stars. They walked to the park, her boots crunching in the snow, her laughter sharp in the air as she joined other children in building forts. Neighbors began to wave. The world started to look less like steel and glass and more like crayons and warmth. One morning, she ran barefoot into the backyard just to check if the snow was real. She shrieked at the cold, darted back inside, and collapsed into laughter on the couch, her cheeks pink, her robe trailing behind her like a cape. Ethan wrapped her feet in a towel, shaking his head. "You will freeze," she grinned. "But it is mine. It is my yard." He realized then that for her, every small moment was a discovery. A yard, a fridge with magnets, a house that stayed the same from one day to the next. Things he had taken for
Ethan's
granted were, for Lily,
has taken
proof
him.
that she belonged somewhere at last. Nora Whitman visited for a home check. She walked through Lily's room, noted the drawings on the walls, the books stacked neatly, the little desk with crayons scattered across it. She smiled.
It is really going to be okay.
"She is thriving," she told Ethan over cocoa at the kitchen
can help.
table. Joy, stability, security, and more pancakes than I expected. Ethan laughed softly. "I am working on the eggs." That evening, as they watched a movie on the couch, Lily turned to him suddenly. "Do you miss being alone?" she asked. He blinked, surprised. "Why do you think that?" She shrugged. "You were alone for a long time before me." He considered his answer carefully.
Right there, please.
"I thought I liked being alone. I thought it made me strong, but it only made me quiet. Now, I think I like not being quiet." She leaned against his arm. "I like you not quiet." Later, after she had fallen asleep, he tucked her in and paused at the door.
This is my
A new
safe
drawing
space.
rested by her nightlight. It was their house again, but this time a banner stretched above the door with 3 words written in crooked letters: "This is home." Ethan stood there for a long time, unable to move. Downstairs, he poured himself a glass of water and stared out at the snowy yard. He thought of Sophia's voice. The way she once told him love was not something you
I think the
stumbled
thing that
upon,
scares me
but
the
something
most
you
is
built, one choice at a
being there
time.
when all
He had
the
not
good things
understood
happen.
then. Now he did. The
I
girl
like that.
upstairs
I
was
like
not
that
his by
better.
blood, but she was his in every way that mattered. He was not perfect, but he stayed. And for the first time in years, he felt whole. There are moments in life when everything you thought you knew about yourself changes in an instant. For Ethan, it was not during a business
never
deal
forget
or
it.
boardroom victory, but on a freezing night when a little girl whispered, "Please take me home, sir."
Good evening.
That simple plea
Good
unraveled
evening.
years
Thank
of
you.
distance, silence, and ambition, forcing him to confront not the man he was, but the man he could still become. Lily entered
Oh
his
my
world as a
God.
fragile shadow of childhood, carrying scars far deeper than bruises on her arms. She had known loss, betrayal, and fear before she none ever knew safety.
Mark is
Yet
coming for you,
even in her
pal.
quiet voice and hesitant steps, there was a resilience, a spark waiting to be nurtured. Ethan had the choice to turn away, to hand her off to the faceless system and continue his life of calculated detachment. But love, real love, is rarely convenient.
Lily!
It asks for presence, for courage, for sacrifice.
take me!
And so he stayed. Together, they built something neither of them had expected. Each drawing Lily created was not just a picture, it was a declaration of hope. A house with smoke curling from the chimney, a tall man holding her hand, an angel watching above. Slowly, her drawings transformed from fractured memories to promises of belonging. And with each crayon stroke,
Let go of
Ethan
me.
felt the weight of his own heart shift from regret to redemption.
No.
He learned that being strong was not about empire or wealth. It was about sitting at the edge of a bed, promising no yelling and no leaving. It was about blueberry pancakes shaped like stars, about
are
wrapping
mine
small
now,
feet in
no
towels
matter
after
what
daring to
anyone
touch the
says.
snow. about listening to laughter echo in a house that had once been silent. For Lily, the word home became more than a dream. It became her reality. And for Ethan, the word family was no longer something he had lost with Sophia, but something he had been given again through Lily. Their story is not about perfection. It is about choosing each other, again and again, even when fear lingers and shadows threaten. And perhaps that is what love truly is. Not flawless, not easy, but steadfast. It is showing up. It is staying. It is allowing yourself to be changed by the presence of another human being who looks at you and whispers, "You feel like family." If this story touched something in your heart, if it reminded you that healing often comes in the most unexpected forms, then we invite you to join us here. Subscribe to the Retold Stories and discover more tales that remind us of the power of love, hope, and second chances. Because sometimes the most extraordinary stories are the ones that begin in the coldest places and end with the warmest word of all, home.